What is up, everyone? This is Bleach Unbound here, back at it again of What If Ichigo Wielded Yoruichi Shihoin, part 2 of 2. Pretty much the last time we had left off was pretty much Ichigo being defeated by Aizen, but in the same time he had won. He had saved Rukia, and defeating Aizen wasn't his main purpose, so, it was kind of like a win-win, so, it didn't really matter. But like I said, we had left off at the end of the Soul Society arc. Ichigo and Yoruichi and the rest of his friends are now, recuperating from their injuries. We then time skip to Ichigo, who is in the human world, walking with Yoruichi through the city streets. He had about 1 month of summer left, and he was wondering what he was going to do. He wanted to spend time with his friends, Yoruichi, and obviously, his shinigami friends, Renji and Rukia. As he was walking by, they made it back to the Urahara shop. As once they would enter, Urahara would then tell him that they have a letter for him. As Urahara would hand him the letter, this would be a letter straight from the head captain of all the Gotei 13, Genryusai Shigegunke Yamamoto. Ichigo would open the letter as he was reading it, as Yamamoto had offered him a chance to train under him, and Ichigo was kind of shocked. He was wondering why would someone offer him such position or such offer. So he looked through, as he was said that Yamamoto would teach him on Kido, Ho-Ho, Hakudo, and Zanjutsu, just pretty much everything he could learn about in this 1 month. As Ichigo was curious on how Yamamoto would train him, since he had seen Yamamoto in Shikai, or in that weird state where he has flames around him, and it looked really powerful. It didn't, when he looked at the old man, it seemed he wasn't that strong, but when he had seen him take off his robes on the top half of his shahakusho, he was ripped. He was kind of surprised. But Ichigo would close the letter, as Urahara would then tell him, well, if you want to accept, I have the Senkaimon open. As Ichigo would then tell Yoruichi to follow, as him and Yoruichi would make it through the Senkaimon gate. Once they would get to the other side, they'd be meted by the first division members, as they'd escort him to the first divisions, or not the first division, but the training ground where Yamamoto lives and resides in. Once he would get there, he would walk in, as there would be a kind of how do I say this? There would be it's kind of like a forest cleaning. When he went in, he had to push the leaves aside as he went into the clearing, in a sense. As once he would go inside, he would then see Yamamoto in the middle, as he was meditating, almost at inner peace. As Ichigo would tell Yoruichi to stay behind, telling him he'll meet her later on, as now he has some training to do. So Ichigo walks over to Yamamoto, as he then sits down, as he questions Yamamoto, how do you do that position, the meditative stance, what is it called? As Yamamoto then says, this is called Jinsen. Even though I'm not communicating with my Zanpakuto, I am at the same time. Just living, and in this position, it makes one come at peace with his Zanpakuto, or hers. As he would then get up, he would then tell Ichigo, have you ever heard of these techniques, Soketsu and Oketsu? Ichigo would shake his head and a no stance, as Yamamoto would then say, that's what I thought. Let me show you what it does. As Yamamoto would look towards the tree, as he would then suddenly aim two of his fists in a stance, as he would then punch through the tree. Suddenly the tree would disintegrate into just wood particles, in a sense, and Ichigo would be shocked. He's like, how did he do that? What is this technique? As Yamamoto would explain to him, you are infusing Ryatsu into the knuckles of your fist, as you are slightly using your Zamba, or your Reishi, your dominant Reishi over them, to basically crush them. And soon I'll be teaching you other techniques to intimidate your opponent. As suddenly Yamamoto then says, I'll be teaching that right now. Suddenly huge pressure would crush onto Ichigo as Yamamoto, he would look up to Yamamoto as he would see fire surrounding him. Not actual fire, but sort of like an aura. Ichigo's like legs would start to buckle as he then sees Yamamoto's soul crush, in a sense. He feels that on his shoulders. He hears that voice in his head saying, just sit down. Just sit down. You're tired. You should sit down, Ichigo Kurosaki. Some voice in the back of his head convincing him to give up. As suddenly Yamamoto would let up on the pressure, and he would explain to Ichigo what the technique basically was. He explained to Ichigo this technique was sort of just manipulating Reishi into outputting it on his opponent. And if you were really stronger than the opponent, you could erase them from existence just by walking past them. As Ichigo would be astonished by Yamamoto's strength, as this would start the more teacher-student bond between Ichigo and Yamamoto. I was about to say Naruto. That would not have been good. But we'll do a time skip for about 1 month. So in this 1 month, a lot of things would happen, and I'll be going over them slowly, or at least I'll try to. Yamamoto teaches Ichigo on almost everything he can, shinigamis, their abilities, as Ichigo started to get a touch on, Kido mastery over it. Same with Ho-Ho, Hakudo, which he does already have pretty good mastery over. As this would lead to a lot of things. Soifon would want to do a lot of spars with Ichigo, saying as Yoruichi had kind of became his Zanpakuto and all, and obviously Soifon sees Ichigo as some worthy opponent for her Hakuda, as Ichigo really wouldn't have any reason to decline this, as they would have a bunch of spars. Ichigo would have sessions of calligraphy with Byakuya, and then sessions with Unohana on healing, just using Ryatsu in a way to heal, which is completely different, but he still wants to know some of it. As also he would ask Unohana to teach him in swordsmanship. So Unohana would be a little put off by this, but Ichigo would have been told of Unohana's previous name by Yamamoto, as he was astonished by this title, being able to know 8,000 styles. He was really impressed. Nonetheless, no wonder every time Unohana had that aura around her, she was really scary. As Ichigo would start being trained and giving tips by most of the captains of the Gotei 13, as he was becoming stronger and stronger as the days pass. And this would lead to Ichigo getting to know the Shihoin clan. At this point, Ichigo is a Shihoin at this point. It's just spiritually. So Ichigo would be, introduced into like Yushiro, who was the head of the clan at the time. Obviously, Ichigo and Yushiro would get along at first. I don't see a problem with them disagreeing. As Ichigo would be introduced to the other clan members, obviously, they would all ask him, if he's going to become a shinigami after his human life. As Ichigo would then say that he'll be glad to come to Soul Society and live here. As pretty much what would occur is they would offer him the chance to take up the head of the clan, obviously with a few years of training and experience and being taught by other nobles, to fit the role first before he would be given the role. But other than that, he seems worthy. As obviously Ichigo would start to grow bonds in Soul Society, and generally he's getting stronger. After the 1 month time skip, Ichigo now goes back to school, as he goes to school with his friends, as now, obviously, Uriel unfortunately still does not have his power, as he had used his Sanuary glove and released it, causing him to lose his powers, but don't worry, he'll be getting his Volst again really soon. So Ichigo now goes to school normally, and pretty much in the middle of class, He was sitting there as he felt this pressure come into the world itself, almost like someone had entered via portal, but it wasn't like the usual Sankaimon, since they have Gigais and stuff on, or at least they're gonna be on, since usually Gigais they also have Gensei Kaijos, which restricts like 80% of their power, I believe. Also that, but he recognizes the Ryatsu. It's more hollow-like, more instinctual. As Ichigo raises his hand to use the bathroom, suddenly Uryu needs to use the bathroom too, as obviously the rest of her friends would head over to the Ryatsu where it's being located. As once they would get there, Ichigo would be in a shinigami outfit with his katana in his sheath or in his sash. As he would come onto the scene, you would see Yami absorbing a bunch of humans, as he would have commented about the disgusting nature of it, obviously them not tasting good. As Ulquiorra would respond, telling him it was quite obvious since they were humans and they didn't have much Ryatsu, or even know the concept of Ryatsu itself. As Yami would just be like, yeah, I know, but I just wanted to see. As he looked over to the right, Ichigo was there with his sword on his shoulder, as he would then say, guys, this isn't the lost and found. I think you guys should find your way out, or maybe I'll do something about it. Nah, I'm not just kidding. I'm not trying to see how he felt after saying that. No. But pretty much Ichigo is pulling like a joke, kind of like a Spider-Man quote, I guess. Not a quote. Spider-Man never said it, but sort of like a quip. So Yami would then suddenly be enraged by his Shinigami's presence, since Hollows naturally have a hatred towards Shinigamis. He would then throw his fist in the air as a bala would escape from his hand, going right for Ichigo. Ichigo would then be shocked at this, as he would then use Bakudo number 81, Danku. A transparent shield would spawn between the bala and Ichigo, as it would hit the shield, defending Ichigo from the attack. Ichigo would then say, that's not really an attack, that's actually, really healthy to use, huh? I thought we were sparring, because right now you don't really seem that strong. As suddenly lightning would course through Ichigo's veins, as his eyes would turn lightning impish, as his aura would start to form the Shunko aura, as he would then appear in front of, not in front, but sort of behind Yami, as Yami's throat would then be seen as it was slashed through, as Yami's right arm was then also taken off too. After this, Ichigo would then say, see, easy. I'm so confused why you didn't use your iron skin though, the well-known Hiedo technique. Why didn't you use it? As Yami would obviously be arrogant, he rarely ever uses Hiedo, which is why Ichigo cut him after he had beat Ulquiorra. And Ichigo would then look over to Ulquiorra, as he would then question him. It seems you're studying me. It seems like your mission is to study my power. It seems Aizen's interested in me. That's quite comical. So Ulquiorra, not Ulquiorra, he's not actually saying his name, but he would just say so, have you gained your research, or do you need more? As Ulquiorra would then look at Ichigo, you would see his soul pressure kind of fluctuating slightly, but it was still usually the same, and it's completely different. Ichigo or Zangetsu isn't trying to take over, so Ichigo's at his full power, or at least nearly. He didn't go Bankai, or use his Hollow Mask. As Ulquiorra would respond saying, how come you talk as if you have the power to see if I have enough research. Why don't you come and find out? As Ulquiorra would unsheath his sword, as Ichigo would then point his finger at Ulquiorra, as he would then suddenly charge a Seto. As Ulquiorra was surprised, he's using a Seto, but only a Ronkars can. Suddenly he was interrupted, saying, not only Ronkars can use that, even hollows, even small level hollows can use that. It's just because they don't have as much Ryatsu control to compress such energy into a shape. As Ichigo would appear in front of Ulquiorra, as he would then shoot the Sero. And to put insult to injury, he would swing down his blade as Getsuga would escape from his blade. Obviously, not really Getsuga, but it's something like that. As a huge yellow Getsuga, or energy attack would escape from his blade, coated in lightning, as it merged with Xehther, as there was a huge explosion. After the explosion would recede, we then see Ulquiorra with his clothes tattered as tattoo and now be revealed as number 4. As Ichigo was quite surprised by this, saying, "Oh, I'm only in Shika and I managed to hurt the number 4th espada. I'm quite flattered." As suddenly Urahara and Yoruichi would appear, asking if Ichigo is okay, as Ichigo would then wave his arm, saying, "Oh, no, I was quite fine. Don't worry about me. I'd suggest, Urahara, that you take care of them. Maybe seal them, per se." As Urahara would then say, "Just as I was thinking, Kurosaki-san." As he would then aim his his cane at them. As he would then say, "Bakuro number 61, Rikujo Kuro," as it would go right for Ulquiorra, as pretty much Ulquiorra would Sonido by Yami, as he would then kick Yami into a garganta, as he had seen Urahara join the battle and he cannot afford to fight Urahara. After the whole fight, pretty much with Ulquiorra and Yami, Ichigo would then be told by Urahara and Yoruichi about the upcoming war coming up in the winter, and now Ichigo has all this time to train. As Ichigo nodded his head, as he'd realized he needs to train. As he went up to Urahara, he had questioned him. "So, where's a good place I could train? Possibly shinigami, maybe if they have some information on how to use holo techniques." As Urahara would then say, "Well, I have the right group." He then gets out a post-it note as he written down the address quickly, as Ichigo would then head towards the location. Once he would get there, he would then walk in as he was then approached by Shinji. Shinji would then say, "Oh, Urahara told us you were coming. Well, now you're here. Let's get started." As they would start sparring, as in the middle they would start talking to each other, with the others, of course. Shinji would question Ichigo if he knew how to use hollow powers or a mask. As Ichigo would then swipe on a mask, as Shinji would then say, "What's your time limit?" As Ichigo would be confused. "Time limit? There's a time limit on these masks?" As Shinji would then say, "Well, try to see how long you can hold it on for. It doesn't feel heavy?" As Ichigo would then say, "No. I think it feels heavy for you guys, right? What's the time limit for you?" As they would all say around, Mashiro having the most being like 5 minutes, although most of them had like about 3 minutes. As Ichigo started to give them tips, as he would tell them, maybe you should accept yourself. Maybe you guys, the reason you can't hold it as much is because subconsciously you hate this technique or hate using it. So try to accept it. Accept that you have to resort to using this mask. As they would start to try to accept that, this would cause their time limits to expand by the moment, thus being a good thing. Ichigo would then spend the next maybe 3 months training with them. And obviously I'm not going to go over the 1,000-year blood war arc, maybe the light novels, but I'll just skim over that. So in this 2-month time skip, Ichigo would train with obviously the vizards, as we'll be going over the Ichigo versus Grimmjow fight. Be going around the second fight. Obviously where Ichigo first uses his hollow mask. So Ichigo senses the Ryatsu as he would see the amount of espada type presence he feels, as he would then run towards the field. Once he would get there, he would then see Grimmjow in the streets, like not in the streets, but like putting a foothold on the air. Ichigo would then get up to him, as obviously Grimmjow would recognize him from the last time they fought. And if you're wondering, what about the first time they fought? Did Ichigo beat Grimmjow? What really happened? So Ichigo managed to beat Grimmjow, or at least keep up with him until, Kaname came down and pretty much told Grimmjow to retreat. As that's exactly what happened. And Grimmjow telling Ichigo his name and stuff like that. But pretty much what would occur next is Ichigo would then say, "Yeah, I recognize you." As suddenly Yoruichi would summon in front of him, as he would go into his Bankai, kind of merging with Yoruichi. After this, a yellow aura would escape from his body, as now his sword, it's all like the tip of the sword started to turn golden, as the usual Bankai design would be there, as Ichigo then suddenly appear in front of Grimmjow. Now, Bankai Ichigo in this what if would be equal to Grimmjow in base, and when base Grimmjow went to Resurrection and Ichigo put on his mask, Ichigo would then be stronger. So Ichigo is clashing with Grimmjow, as pretty much Grimmjow was scared at this. He was seeing Ichigo's immense strength as he was overwhelming him. Every slice he would take, he would either have the fear of being electrocuted or sliced off, or like his head being sliced off or maimed. As he had realized he needed to release, he would then start to try to release until he was then yet again interrupted by Ulquiorra, who would then tell them that his mission is finished. They would then walk in, as pretty much what would happen is Orihime would still be abducted by Ulquiorra. Obviously, Soul Society realized that they need to go back to Soul Society and prepare for the Cold War, while Ichigo is wondering what he should do. He either saves his childhood friend or goes upon the path of what he always wished, to be with Soul Society and possibly be allies with them. He's a bit in a pickle right now, as he questions Yoruichi on what he should do. Obviously, Yoruichi would answer him saying that if Aizen were to invade, they do have lots of reinforcements, being the Vizards, the Shinigami, Urahara herself, and Tessai. So if Ichigo would not be here, they wouldn't really be the end of the world. So he encourages Ichigo to go. As Ichigo were to bring along his friends, being Chad and Uryu, they would then head off into Hueco Mundo with their turbans on for the upcoming deserts. As once they would appear outside the other side of the Garganta, which Ichigo this time might have less trouble putting a foothold, as they would start running. So Ichigo, maybe like 2 hours in, Ichigo realized this was some sort of endless mirage, or at least it seemed like it, because they seemed like they were running in the same direction. Ichigo would then grab their shoulders as he would then flash step. He would then flash step pretty far, about maybe 6,000 feet, meters, whatever metric system you use. As suddenly they'd keep walking for about a few seconds, until they would then walk past Neliel and her group, as they would offer them a ride with their pet, as they would be sitting down, as Neliel would question Ichigo on like what shinigami are and stuff, as Ichigo would question, or not question but respond, saying that he wasn't the normal shinigami. Usually normal shinigami would have slayed you, but that's not something I like to do. As this would kind of form their team, more like friendship between DankGod, Chaka, I can't remember the other guy's name, but they were both subordinates of Neliel when she was still a espada. But let's do a small time skip. I'm not trying to go over those fights with the smaller Ronkars and shit. I'm trying to go right to Ichigo versus Grimmjow. So Ichigo had managed to fight all the Ronkars and the I can't remember them. The Espada, who used to be Espada, but they are now Premeire Espada, like 3 digits. So it was Ichigo versus Grimmjow. Ichigo this time doesn't need to be healed. If you're wondering, does he still get a hole through his chest like he did against Ulquiorra? No, that did not happen. So what would happen is when Ulquiorra would tell Ichigo that he was the one who kidnapped Orihime, he would immediately go into his Bankai, as he would appear in front of Ulquiorra as he would slice down. A huge lightning wave would escape from his blade as they would go right for Ulquiorra. This time Ulquiorra actually needing to use his Hueco, which would barely defend him against the technique, but he would still nonetheless get a cut across his shoulder. Now after this, they would start fighting until Ulquiorra realized that he was not strong enough to defend himself against Ichigo, as he would just fade and leave, starting to heal himself. But after this, Ichigo then would bump into Grimmjow, who would have Orihime would heal Ichigo, and they would start to fight. Ichigo and Grimmjow are clashing sword to sword, with Ichigo, being told by Grimmjow to put on his mask. As Ichigo would tell Grimmjow that he's not strong enough to make Ichigo put on his mask. As suddenly Grimmjow would get a little annoyed by this, as he would suddenly form a Sero, a blue type one, as he would then shoot it at Ichigo, but he would then change direction last second, saying Grand Rey Zero. As the Grand Rey Zero is going right for Orihime and Neliel. Ichigo realized the only way he can get there is if he had the mask gun to go get his speed boost. As he'd swiped on the mask, he would then appear in front of the Acero, as he would then block the technique. As he would look towards Orihime and Neliel to ask if they're okay, and they would nod their heads, with Orihime still having the usual fear of the hollow eyes of Ichigo. As Ichigo looked down at Grimmjow, as his mask was showing, as it was shown to have evolved to that of a horn of salvation on the left side of his head, sort of like fused tensils on Getsu. Now, Grimmjow and Ichigo would start fighting, and Grimmjow would realize he needs to release, so he would then put on his Resurrection, and they would start brawling. Ichigo would be clashing equally to Grimmjow, as they would pretty much be equal at this point. Ichigo would then suddenly, not equal, but like sort of like Ichigo has like greater or equal to Grimmjow, so he is sort of equal without all the Kido and Hakuda and Ho-Ho, just with Zanjutsu. Ichigo would then suddenly realize he needed to take Grimmjow out. The point of the mission was finished. He needs to go back to Karakura town and needs to deal with the invasion. Ichigo would then appear in front of Grimmjow. He would then use Bakudo number 61, Rikujo Kuro, for then using 62, 63, 75, and 79, with a bunch of Kidos restraining, a bunch of Bakudo restraining Grimmjow. He would be a little annoyed, as Ichigo would then appear in front of Grimmjow, as he would then say, "I'm sorry, Grimmjow. I love fighting, but I have a mission to do. I hope maybe next time we can have a good spar." As he would then slice down, a gash would appear over Grimmjow's chest as he would fall over, and his body were to go temporarily limp. Now, a few minutes afterwards, Ichigo was walking towards Orihime when he had felt a blade coming towards him. Ichigo would then turn around and clash with said blade, before then using Getsuga, or sort of lightning-based attack, as he would send the blade flying back. Suddenly, someone would catch the blade and appear in front of Ichigo, this being Ulquiorra. So Ichigo would look towards the man, as he would then say, "You seem to be stronger than Grimmjow and Ryatsu, but not in power." As Ichigo would then appear in front of Ulquiorra, as he would slice down him getting past the hero, but barely. As his gash would appear over his chest, as Ichigo then flashed it back, as Ulquiorra would look at his chest. He then starts smiling, seeing how Ichigo managed to actually hit him, which he was quite excited about. Obviously, they'd be interrupted by Kenpachi, who would want the fight, and obviously Ichigo would give it to him graciously. As Ichigo would then start to head towards the Garganta, or at least try to head over to the outside of Mundo, so you can, not Mundo, Las Noches, like get clear before you can open the Garganta. He does want to actually send someone into the Garganta, but suddenly someone would appear in front of him. This being Stark, who would take, Orihime the same way, as Ichigo would then head towards the main palace after hearing Aizen's speech and all. Once he would get there, he would then see Ulquiorra there, as Ichigo realized he needs to stop holding back. He needs to release all of his power at once, as Ichigo had then went into Bankai. Once he would do this, a aura would take over his body, as suddenly his hair would turn long, as it had turned into that of a blackish color, as his eyes were turned blue, sort of blue, as he had become taller and more leaner, as suddenly all the lightning would surround his body, as he would then, the sword would disappear, as his mask, his horn of salvation, would form onto his top left of his head, as suddenly there'd be an explosion of Ryatsu. From this very release, Mundo was shaking. People were fighting outside his Kenpachi would feel this presence, as just him feeling this, he would feel so excited. He'd feel who is this coming from, and being Ichigo, as he was really excited to fight Ichigo. Now, later on in the fight, Ulquiorra would be majorly overwhelmed, even in his second resurrection, as he would then later on be defeated. As Ichigo would stand over his corpse, which is disintegrating by the second, Ichigo walks over to Orihime as he would then take both Oryu and Orihime down. As once they would get there, obviously Byakuya would tell them that he needs to head over to Parkour Town, and he does that with him and Unohana going along. Unohana would heal him as now it is time to end Aizen. Aizen, Ichigo knowing about the Hokkyoku, or at least having some basic knowledge of it, would realize he needs to take down Aizen as soon as possible for the Hokkyoku properly fuses with him. If he had shown enough power, a lot of power above Aizen, maybe, just maybe, the Hokkyoku might see the power imbalance between Aizen and choose Ichigo as his possible next host. And Ichigo's logic was possibly right. Ichigo would run through the Garganta with a foothold, as like I said, Unohana would heal him, as he would thank Unohana. As he then busted through the Garganta, as he would appear in front behind Aizen, as he would slash down. A huge slash of lightning would appear as he would go right for, this time, Aizen's back. As what would happen is, for some reason, Ichigo would see the attack, he would use the attack, it would go for his neck as the shield would start to form. Ichigo would then smile as another attack would appear. Apparently the attack he had used was sort of like a clone or an illusion. As the attack would hit his back, there'd be an explosion as, Aizen's back cloak would then be burnt off as he would have a few wounds, as he would then say, that was quite the cheeky trick, Kurosaki. I can't even complain about it since I do use a Zanbakuto that does control all 5 senses. But for an attack like that, you truly did get me there. This is why I chose you. This is why I manipulated you since you were born, or even before that. Because you are a true specimen. Someone who could actually defeat me. As Ichigo would then say, I know I can defeat you, which is why I'm going to do it right here, with the power I used to easily defeat Ulquiorra. As Ichigo would then suddenly go into his Bankai with the same yellow aura, long black hair, blue eyes. Obviously blue eyes from like the aura of Shunko is more like blue. As he would then summon his sword, Ichigo would then gain the same Horn of Salvation as he would appear in front of Aizen. He would then go to split him in half, saying, Getsuga, Gren Rei Zero. As he would then slash right through, Aizen, as suddenly Aizen would then be seen split in half. As the Hokkyoku would start to glow, but Ichigo would then output his Ryatsu, showing his dominance over the Hokkyoku itself, as the Hokkyoku would glow again. As it would then suddenly appear in Ichigo's chest, or in the middle, as now I had chose him as the new host, with Aizen standing, or laying dead at his feet. All the captains would be surprised. Ichigo just came in and defeated Aizen like it was nothing, and this had marked the end of the Aranka arc, and yeah, it's sort of good. Haribel becomes queen of Mundo and becomes allies with Soul Society. Not too much, just be like, hey, I'm not going to attack you and you're not going to attack me. It's nothing too bad. As Ichigo would go to the world of living, as he would stop his life in the world of living, as he would live on his life in Soul Society with Yoruichi, and he would become trained to become the next head of the Shihoin clan, with him going against Yuha, which would kind of relatively go the same since Ichigo is there in the first invasion. It does change drastically. Byakuya is then put onto death's door, same with Renji and Rukia. Ichigo kind of just clutched here, and since he has the Hokkyoku, he becomes stronger and stronger, and he's gonna be majorly stronger. Once he would come up to Yuha, he would have, obviously he wouldn't have Aizen, which would kind of be wouldn't help as much, but I'm gonna have something just as better. I saw in the light novel a certain character that I really liked. Let's say Ichigo, knowing the history of Soul Society, would ask Asashiro Soya for help to defeat Yuha, as Ichigo would offer Asashiro a chance to be allies with Hollows, so they don't have to, in a sense, go through the process of killing each other, since Asashiro Soya did want to do psychosurgery on Hollows or humans to make it so they never become Hollows, which the Zero Squad didn't agree with, which has led to his imprisonment. Obviously, the Zero Squad for this would allow Ichigo to get Asashiro, as him and Asashiro would go against Yuha with a Quincy arrow coming in to cancel out or nullify his almighty for a split second, as Ichigo would then split him in half. When it came to the light novels like The Can't Fear Your Own World, Ichigo wouldn't be on some trip to the world of living, so the whole Tokinada situation would be way less dangerous as it was calculated. And he would have more influence. And yeah, I believe that is it. But without further ado, guys, I hope you like this series. But like I said, I hope you guys have a good day. Peace.